This is Shadows and Gods, where forgotten myths breathe again, where ancient wars echo through eternity, and where the rise and fall of immortals shape the world itself. In this video, we return to an age before Olympus, before Zeus became king, to a war so violent, it split heaven from earth and decided who would rule existence forever. Before our world had a history, before kings and empires, before humanity even had a name, there was an age of raw, untamed power. This wasn't a time ruled from the shining peak of Mount Olympus, but from the jagged, shadowy crags of Mount Othrys. This was the era of the Titans, a generation of gods so primal and immense they were less like people and more like living forces of nature. They were the children of the sky and the earth, and their king, Cronus, ruled over a so-called golden age. It's a common mistake to think of him as the god of time. That's a much later mix-up with a similar sounding name, Cronus. Cronus was a harvest god, but his reign was built on a foundation of paranoia and unimaginable cruelty. Because Cronus held a dark secret in his belly, the children he had swallowed whole to defy a terrifying prophecy. A prophecy foretold that, just like his own father, he'd be overthrown by his child. His solution was monstrous: swallow your children the moment they're born. But what happens when one child escapes? What happens when a mother's grief finally turns into a rebellion? This is the story of the Titanomachy, the brutal 10-year war for the very soul of the cosmos. A war not just of gods, but of generations. A clash that would decide if the universe would be governed by the chaotic might of the old world or the ambitious new order of the Olympians. Our story really begins with Cronus's father Uranus, the primordial sky. He and Gaia, the earth, were the first parents, and their children were magnificent and terrifying. First came the 12 Titans, powerful and regal, but then came stranger offspring, the Cyclopes, 3 one-eyed giants who were master craftsmen, and the Hecaton chairs, monstrous beings of insane strength, each with 100 hands and 50 heads. Uranus looked at these monstrous children, not with love, but with fear and disgust. He saw their power as a threat to his rule, so in an act of profound cruelty, he refused to let them see the light of day. He took the Cyclopes and the Hecaton chairs and shoved them back deep within the earth, imprisoning them inside their own mother, Gaia. Gaia groaned in agony, her body strained by the prison she had become. Her love for her children curdled into a cold, hard rage. She needed a champion. She needed someone to free them. From the depths of the earth, she forged a new metal, impossibly hard and sharp adamant. She fashioned it into a great curved sickle and presented it to her Titan sons. "Your father has shamed us," she declared, her voice the rumbling of an earthquake. "He is a tyrant. Who among you has the guts to end his reign?" The Titans were silent, all except one. Cronus, the youngest and most ambitious, stepped forward. He felt no loyalty to the father who had wronged his mother and brothers. He took the adamantine sickle. That night, as Uranus descended to embrace Gaia, Cronus lay in wait. With one terrible sweeping motion, he lunged and used the sickle to castrate his father, throwing the severed members into the sea. Uranus let out a cry that echoed across the cosmos, a scream of pain and betrayal as he retreated into the highest heavens, forever separated from the earth. With that single brutal act, the age of Uranus was over. The age of the Titans had begun. Cronus was now the undisputed ruler of the universe. He and his sister wife, the Titaness Rhea, ruled over what poets would later call a golden age. But this paradise was tainted by the new king's hypocrisy. Cronus had seized power by condemning his father's tyranny, yet he committed the very same crime. He refused to release his monstrous brothers, the Cyclopes and the Hecaton chairs, from their prison. Instead, he drove them even deeper, into the blackest abyss of the underworld, Tartarus. And to make sure they never escaped, he set a terrifying monster, a dragon woman named Campi, to guard them. The new king was haunted by his father's final words. As Uranus faded, he had cursed his treacherous son. "You have overthrown me, but a child of your own will one day do the same to you." The prophecy was echoed by their mother Gaia, and it burrowed into Cronus's heart, breeding a paranoia that would eat him alive. He looked at his beautiful wife Rhea, and saw not a partner but the instrument of his own destruction. When their first child, Hestia, was born, Cronus did the unthinkable. He snatched the infant from Rhea's arms and swallowed her whole, imprisoning her in his own divine gut. Rhea's horror was absolute, but she was powerless. One by one, her children met the same fate. Demeter, the future lady of the harvest; Hera, the future queen of the gods; Hades, the future lord of the underworld; and Poseidon, the future master of the seas. All were devoured by their father, their divine lives suspended in the darkness inside him. Rhea was trapped in a terrible cycle of grief, birthing children only to have them stolen. But with her sixth pregnancy, her sorrow finally hardened into resolve. She would not lose another child. Desperate, Rhea went to her mother, Gaia, and begged for help. Together, they cooked up a plan born of cunning and deception. Following Gaia's advice, Rhea traveled to the remote island of Crete to give birth in secret. In a deep, hidden cave on Mount Ida, far from Cronus's paranoid watch, she brought her sixth child into the world, a boy. She named him Zeus. To complete the ruse, Rhea returned to Mount Othrys, the seat of Titan power. She wasn't carrying her son. In her arms was a large stone, about the size and weight of a newborn, wrapped tightly in swaddling clothes. She presented the bundle to Cronus, consumed by fear and arrogance. The Titan king didn't even bother to look closely. He snatched the stone from her and swallowed it in one gulp, believing he had once again cheated fate. A cold, heavy rock now sat in his belly, a monument to his own foolishness, while his true doom was being safely raised miles away. Zeus grew up in that Cretan cave, a king in exile. He was nursed by a divine goat named Amalthea and watched over by nymphs. To protect him, a band of warrior spirits called the Crete stood guard. Whenever the infant Zeus cried, they would clash their spears against their shields, the thunderous noise drowning out the baby's cries and ensuring Cronus would never hear him. Years passed. The hidden child grew into a powerful and determined young god, his heart burning with the stories of his swallowed siblings and the tyranny of the father he'd never met. The time for a reckoning was getting closer. Once he reached manhood, Zeus knew he couldn't challenge the Titan king alone. He needed a plan, and for that he needed an ally, with something the Titans often lacked: strategic cunning. He found it in Metis, a wise Oceanide, a goddess of good counsel. She saw the future and knew Cronus's reign was almost over. Together they plotted how to free Zeus's siblings. Disguised as a humble cupbearer, Zeus traveled to the Titan stronghold on Mount Othrys and entered his father's service. Cronus, completely oblivious, accepted the charismatic youth into his court. This was the chance Zeus needed. On Metis's instruction, he mixed a special potion of wine and mustard and served it to the unsuspecting king. The effect was immediate and violent. Cronus's stomach heaved, and he began to retch. First, he vomited up the stone he had swallowed all those years ago, a stone that, according to some traditions, would later be placed at the sacred site of Delphi. Then, one by one, his children emerged from his throat, not as infants, but as fully grown, powerful gods. Out came Poseidon, brandishing the fury of the ocean. Out came Hades, cloaked in the shadows of the underworld. Then Demeter and Hestia, their power crackling. And finally, Hera, regal and ready for a fight. They were free, and they were furious. Thankful to their younger brother for their freedom, they immediately named him their leader. The rebellion had begun. The cosmos fractured. Two mighty armies gathered, drawing their battle lines. The younger gods, led by the charismatic Zeus, set up their fortress on the highest peak in Greece, Mount Olympus. They would become known as the Olympians. Across the valley in Thessaly, on the darker, more ancient Mount Othrys, the old guard rallied. Cronus and his Titan brothers, Iapetus, Hyperion, Coeus, and Creus, prepared to defend their kingdom. Their most formidable general was the mighty Titan Atlas. But not all Titans stood with Cronus. His paranoia and brutality had cost him allies. Crucially, the Titaness Themis, the embodiment of divine law, and her son Prometheus, who could see the future, knew the Titans were doomed. They sided with Zeus and the promise of a more just world. The great Oceanus, the Titan of the world-encircling river, chose neutrality, but he encouraged his daughter Styx, born of him and the Titaness Tethys, to join Zeus. Styx brought her 4 children with her Nike victory, Kratos' strength, Baia force, and Zelos zeal, who would become Zeus's inseparable honor guard. The war began, a chaotic clash of divine power. But the raw, brute force of the Titans was immense. The Olympians, though fierce, found themselves locked in a devastating stalemate. For 10 long years, the war raged. The very fabric of reality was strained. The earth shook, the seas boiled, and the sky itself seemed to crack. Zeus knew that courage wasn't enough. To win this, he needed to unleash the monsters his father and grandfather had feared. Guided by a prophecy from his grandmother Gaia, Zeus understood that victory was hidden in the darkest pit of the underworld. He descended into the crushing gloom of Tartarus, the cosmic prison where his monstrous uncles, the Cyclopes and the Hecatoncheires, had been rotting for ages. Their path was blocked by the jailer, Campe, a horrifying creature with the body of a woman, a scorpion's tail, and venomous snakes for hair. Zeus fought and killed the monstrous guard, breaking the chains that held his family captive. The 3 one-eyed Cyclopes, Arges, Brontes, and Steropes, and the 300-handed giants, Cottus, Briareus, and Gyges, were free. Grateful for their freedom, they pledged their immense power to Zeus. The Cyclopes, who were master blacksmiths, immediately fired up their forges. For Zeus, they crafted his most iconic and devastating weapon, the thunderbolt. For Poseidon, they forged a mighty 3-pronged trident, giving him power over the seas and earthquakes. And for Hades, they created the Helm of Darkness, a cap that could make its wearer completely invisible. The Hecatoncheires, the 100-handers, offered a different kind of power. Theirs wasn't craft, but pure, cataclysmic force. They were living siege engines, and they were eager to unleash their fury on the Titans who had imprisoned them. Armed with these unimaginable new weapons, and allied with these terrifying forces, Zeus returned to the battlefield. The stalemate was about to break. With their new allies, the tide of war turned, and the conflict exploded to a cosmic scale. The ancient poet Hesiod describes a battle so huge that the entire universe seemed to cry out in agony. The earth groaned, the forests crackled with fire, the rivers and seas boiled, and a choking heat filled the air. From the peak of Mount Olympus, Zeus was no longer just a warrior. He was a living storm. He unleashed the full, terrifying power of his thunderbolts. The sky flashed with a blinding, non-stop light as hundreds of bolts rained down on Mount Othrys, shattering its peaks and setting its forests ablaze. The glare was so bright, it blinded the Titan warriors. This wasn't a one-front war. While Zeus assaulted from the sky, his brothers waged their own campaigns. Hades, cloaked in his helm of darkness, became a phantom of sabotage. He moved unseen through the Titan ranks, spreading confusion, cutting supply lines and destroying their weapons. He was a ghost in their midst, a whisper of fear that eroded their morale from within. Poseidon, wielding his trident, struck the very earth. He sent devastating earthquakes to shatter the Titans' defenses and summoned colossal tidal waves to crash against their mountain fortress. But the real game-changer was the fury of the Hecatoncheires. Standing shoulder to shoulder, a terrifying forest of 300 arms, they began their attack. They didn't use swords or spears. They used the landscape itself with their 100 hands. Each giant would rip massive boulders and chunks of the mountainside and hurl them at the Titans in a relentless barrage. 300 rocks flew through the air at once, a constant, crushing avalanche that blotted out the sun. The Titans, for all their strength, were totally overwhelmed. They thought the mountains themselves were falling on them. And in a way, they were. The air was filled with the deafening roar of smashing rock and the cries of the outmatched Titans. The final battle was an apocalypse. The combined onslaught was simply too much. The unceasing lightning from Zeus, the elemental chaos from Poseidon, the stealthy destruction by Hades, and the overwhelming bombardment from the Hecatoncheires finally shattered the Titan lines. Cronus, seeing his forces decimated and his rule collapsing, was finally defeated by the very sun he had tried to erase. The beaten Titans were thrown from Mount Othries and cast down from the heavens. Showing the same ruthlessness his father and grandfather had, Zeus had them bound in unbreakable chains forged by the Cyclopes. Their prison would be the one they themselves had used, the deep, inescapable abyss of Tartarus. And in a final act of poetic justice, Zeus appointed their former prisoners, the mighty Hecatoncheires, to be their eternal jailers. Most of the male Titans who fought against Zeus were condemned to this fate. But for Atlas, who had been Cronus's top general, Zeus had a special punishment. He wouldn't be imprisoned in the earth, but was condemned to stand at the world's western edge, there, for all eternity. He was sentenced to hold up the sky, forever bearing the weight of the heavens on his shoulders. It was both a terrible torment and a powerful symbol, enforcing the new cosmic order by permanently separating the sky from the earth. With the Titans imprisoned and the new gods victorious, the three brothers, Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades, met to divide the world they had won. They drew lots for their domains. Hades, drawing the short straw, became ruler of the underworld, the vast and gloomy realm of the dead. Poseidon received the seas and all the waters of the world. And Zeus, drawing the longest straw, claimed the grandest prize, the sky, the earth, and dominion over all gods and mortals. He was now Zeus, king of Olympus, the Sky Father. The Titanomachy was more than just a war. It was a cosmic revolution. It marked the end of an era defined by brute strength and primal chaos, and the beginning of a new age defined by the Olympians. For all their flaws, they represented a kind of order, law, and justice, more aligned with the world of humanity that was to come. The victory established the pantheon that would be worshipped for centuries and laid the foundation for nearly every Greek myth that followed. Yet, Zeus's throne wasn't entirely secure. New, even more terrifying threats would rise from the earth to challenge him, from the monstrous giants to the horrifying typhon. But those are stories for another time. The Titanomachy was the first and greatest war of the gods, a brutal, epic struggle that forever decided who would rule the heavens. And even now, when thunder cracks the sky and mountains tremble, the echoes of that ancient war still linger, a reminder that the world we know was forged not in peace, but in the clash of gods.